Hey friends, it's Cam here from Living Worthy, and I don't want to say I feel nervous. I guess this is my first time doing this. I know I've hopped on here plenty of times to give encouragement and things that I feel like God is like teaching me or showing me or whatever that I want to share with you. And I know I've shared little bits and pieces of my journey here and there, but I have felt like God has been nudging me to go a little bit deeper in actually just sharing my story. So yeah, to say the least, everything about this right now feels crazy. Everything about this has been nerve-wracking, I guess. I don't think I realized a lot of the fears that were there about sharing my story in this kind of way until I felt like he was actually nudging me to do it. So I've sat on it for a little bit, but he's just confirmed over and over again, like, no, share it. And I realize, though it is often easy for me to share or communicate little bits and pieces, or share with someone like in private, or one-on-one, I just realized just more and more that this story is not my own. In and of itself, like my story, like without God in it, this is probably one of the saddest, most probably even dramatic like stories you might hear, right? But what I realized makes my story matter is because God has inserted himself in it, and I have now become part of his story. And so now this life of mine isn't my own anymore. And so I just see that I don't have the right to just like cling to and hold on to this thing in the name of fear or what people are going to think of me. So getting started. So I grew up here in Southern California. My parents were not together when, I think by the time that I was born. They weren't married or anything. Though my dad was like local, he wasn't really like present. And so my mom got with my stepdad. As a child, I was a very inquisitive kid. I love asking questions and just really like digging. I was definitely like the outspoken one, the one that would just say what's on her mind. But with that curiosity came a curiosity sexually. At a very young age, I just remember being very sexually curious or like sexually charged. I had some experiences very early, like as a kid, where I would do certain things and in talking in certain ways, like with classmates or whatever, that, now I just completely recognize like that was totally not normal. But there was something just in me that like was just very interested in things of sexuality. I know what amplified that was me being molested repeatedly as a little girl. And even when that happened, I think because of just the curiosity that I had and also being exposed to pornography and like sneaking to watch that, as much as I could without getting caught. I think that the combinations of those things caused me to believe that when the molestation happened, though I definitely knew like what was happening was wrong, though I was uncomfortable, but there was also a part of me that somehow thought that this was like normal, or okay, well, this is just what we do. But there was also this like shame part where I knew I could not tell anybody, though those words were, I don't recall ever necessarily spoken, like don't say anything. I never told my parents. I never told anybody at school. It was just like this thing that happened to me more than once. Like I just shoved it and I just buried it. And there were a lot of like tumultuous moments in my parents' relationship where those big kind of like blowout moments between them also, I think, maybe cultivated that same silence in me as well, of like, okay, like, we don't speak up about things. We don't talk about the hard things that happen. But again, I had the perspective that like, well, maybe this is normal, or this is just what happened. So I never really had any healthy context for what sex was, or really even like who I was as a girl, as a woman. Things weren't never really explained. So I think I was just kind of like left to come up with my own definitions and my own like theories on what was okay and what was not okay. Throughout all this time, both of my grandmothers would take me to church. And so I didn't really grow up in church. I grew up like around church. And I remember even in that same time at an early age, having just an attraction for Jesus. And I remember, repeating the sinner's prayer and raising my hand and going up to the front and feeling, I want God, like I want to go to heaven. But everything after that, I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know that this faith of mine was meant to be walked out and lived out. I thought it was just something I like raised my hand and said that I agreed with. And that was like my ticket to heaven, Like I never really shared with my grandmothers, like I made this decision. Now I see like I lived even that part of myself in silence, just like inward, like it was never really like outwardly displayed. So of course, by the time I get to middle school, high school, if you would have asked me, Cam, like, are you a Christian? I would say, yeah, without a doubt. But if you come for me, gossip about me, rub me the wrong way, of course I'm cussing you out. If you were a guy and liked me and thought I was cute, I wasn't gonna sleep with you. Even inwardly, I had like made my resolve, like I am not gonna, have sex until I'm married. I didn't really have any context for why I wanted to do that per se, but it was just like, I'm not going to do that till I'm married. I would talk though, like I was about that life. And so there wasn't really a translation again between my faith, claiming to know Jesus, claiming to be a Christian and all that, versus like how that actually looked in my life. With, I think, all of these past issues too, I also had a lot of insecurity. I always felt like the ugly duckling because of my mole on my nose. From as early as I can remember, I've been called every name in the book. And so just that, and then on top of being the darkest skinned girl in my home, in my family or whatever, being, at the time, like the only daughter on my dad's side of the family. So like, and not really getting like the attention that I craved or the love that I wanted there. Like I believed this lie that like I was the ugly duckling and that nobody was attracted to me, and that in order for me to be attractive, I need to kind of make it up in some kind of way. Whether that was like my achievements and my performance, there was just a repetition of like getting celebrated in those moments of achievement, even my dad like showing up in those moments. So I think that just kind of reinforced this idea that I need to perform in order to be seen, in order to be valued. And I also recognized, like with boys, when a boy was attracted to me, I soaked it all up. I was part of the popular crowd, but I think secretly in my heart, I still didn't feel like I was enough on my own. But there also was a repetition of like boys that would be attracted to me just for one thing. And I knew that and kind of like played that to my advantage and milking every bit of it, knowing that I didn't have any intention of like sleeping with anybody. I would play with the boundaries like as far as I could go in terms of like how I would talk to them, and knowing that I could kind of like reel them in. One of the hard, I think, things I guess that I realized was that no matter how much I even played the role of being the, as it was said, like a lady in the streets but a freak in the sheet, putting off that image like that I'm a good girl on the outside, but like in private I'm a bad girl, giving off that kind of vibe. Like I realized every single time that I tried to fit within that mold of trying to be someone that I wasn't, it would always backfire. I remember one of my boyfriends in high school that I really like so much, he moved to another city. So we would still talk on the phone, and I was just so into him. And this whole time, like my mom had already told, me and my sisters, like, y'all can't date, y'all can't have boyfriends or anything till you're 18. So it's like, I'm sneaking on the phone and all this other stuff. Sorry, Mom. I just started noticing, okay, he's not really available. We pretty much never really saw each other. It was just like our relationship was just us like texting or talking on the phone. And I just remember him breaking up with me because he was like, yeah, like my mom said I need to focus on like school right now. And so I was like, okay. And then literally, like, I want to say it might've been like a couple months later, find out that he is not only dating, but is sleeping with my classmate. And I was so hurt. Like I wasn't enough. And I wasn't giving you evidently maybe what you were looking for. Again, it just put another, like, I think, check on, okay, if I'm not doing that, maybe I'm not worth loving or worth giving attention to or time to. And so I had a few different here today, gone tomorrow boyfriends. I don't even know if I would want to call it that. It was like situationships. Like, what am I doing here? I didn't really know how to exercise my no. I said yes because someone was interested in me. And then I end up with my first real deal boyfriend. I remember we were getting to know one another and I was just like, he's different. Like, he's not, I mean, yeah, he's attracted to me, but that's not his like main thing. We're talking about our upbringing and our goals and our dreams and just like all of these other things, right? And I'm like, this is somebody who actually like likes me. We start dating. After I graduate, I end up going to college, not that far away, and he's in his senior year of high school. Once I get to school, I just get kind of like overwhelmed with all of these like ideas of, what if somebody's interested in me? What if somebody's attracted to me here? Am I gonna miss out? While I'm in college, we broke up twice. And both times wasn't because anything was really like wrong with the relationship. It was more so me trying to like find a reason or find an excuse to leave so I could see like, well, like maybe there's something else out there. Both of those breakups would happen as a result of me like meeting a guy or whatever on campus, maybe liking him or thinking he might like me. And I'm like, okay, well, like gotta be available, right? Like in case. And then every single time the guy would end up liking my best friend, my roommate, or the guy would end up like going to be with another girl or whatever. And I just feel like an idiot. And so then I come back like, okay, like I'm sorry, like I'm done. Well, I thought I, was done with that. And Kevin was definitely at the point of like, yeah, I'm like over this. So no, like we're not going to keep doing that. However, my junior year, I'm like learning how to sew and creating all these different things and organizing fashion shows on campus and all that stuff. And so I end up meeting this guy through one of the fashion show things. And him and a friend of his like have their own clothing line, and they were like a couple years older. But I just remember thinking like, wow, like they're so dope. They're doing it. Like they're doing all the stuff that I want to do. I remember him saying, I love like your work, your style, you're dope. I would love for us to be able to partner some kind of way for us to really like help you level up basically. And so I'm like, yeah. And one of them times when we like met up at Starbucks and my boyfriend came with me and he was just like, no, like I got bad vibes about this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like he's trying to help, like, like I'm really passionate about this. Like I want to do this and this with designing and I'm in a clothing line and blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, no. Start like liking the guy. I just remember again of like using it as an excuse. Like, you know what? Fine. Like, let's break up. And so he's like, are you sure? Because I'm tired of dealing with this and I am not going to do this with you again. So are you sure? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, are you sure this is what you want? And I'm like, yep. Yep. This is what I want. We end up like breaking up, not talking to each other or whatever at all. We ended up happening to see each other again at a party from one of our mutual friends from high school. I show up, he didn't even like acknowledge me, and I just felt like, what, really? You're not gonna say nothing, or you're not gonna say hi? And he was like, hi, and like just blew me off. And I remember going in the car after we left that party crying, like that scene from Baby Boy with Yvette when he slams the door in her face and it's like, take the baby, take the bag. And she's like, you don't love me no more. Like that was me. And I'm like, oh my God, like I messed this up. Okay. And then in that same time, I just was like, okay, then I'm just going to do what I do. So then the guy ended up like inviting me to different things and different fashion stuff. And it started out genuinely as that, but then it did eventually creep into things getting physical. We started sleeping together. A lot of the standards that I originally had, like I'm not gonna have sex till I'm married, and which, I mean, that eventually went out the window with my boyfriend, even though I tried to wait as long as I could. I use protection and I do this and I do that, and just slowly, one compromise after the other, like all of the standards that I like had for myself like flew out the window, and I became someone that I now like I don't even like recognize. And I was at just a place of like being so entranced with this idea of like somebody being attracted to me, like wanting me and pursuing me. And it was like, but it was like there was a hole in me where, though I was getting that even from my, boyfriend at the time, like it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I don't know what it was. It was like there was like a switch that just turned on for me, where it was like I now didn't care about like anyone or anything else really. It was like I was gonna do what I wanted to do and get mines and whatever, like and just not care. I mean, it was really hot girl summer, like out here, like, and I just savage is the word, for real. It was like I would go to class and we would sleep together. Me and my boyfriend started like talking again, and I would be like kind of ping-ponging back and forth between the two of them, and felt no type of way about it, until my body just started feeling off. I like never get sick, but my body was just like, I was like, what is going on? Itching and just all kinds of stuff, like, down south. And so I'm like, something's off. Like, I don't understand what's going on. And I remember telling my boyfriend, like, I think I'm just gonna go to the health center and get checked out and all that stuff. And so I was like, okay. In the examination room, the nurse is like, so, like, are you sexually active? And I'm like, yeah. And so she's like, all right, well, standard procedure. We're gonna give you, like pap smear, all that kind of like stuff, which was terrifying. That was like my first experience doing that. Oh my gosh. So that was like just a bit traumatic. And then she was like, we have to do a STD screening. So I'm like, all right. So she does the screening, gives me some stuff for some of the other issues that ended up like popping up. But I'm like breaking out, and I'm like, okay, like what is going on? And so yeah, so I think, I can't remember how much time passed. It might've been like maybe like a week or so. The doctor's office calls me to come back in for a follow-up. And so I'm sitting there, and I will never forget that. I'm sitting there in front of the doctor. He's like, yeah, so like we did your STD screening, and so it looks like you have herpes, and I'm just like, wait, what? And it was just like I don't know if you've ever felt like when you get hit with news like that, and it's like the whole world slows down. Like everybody else is talking around you. It sounds like Charlie Brown, the Charlie Brown teacher, like, wah, 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 like, wait, what? And it was like time slowed down. And I was like so overwhelmed, and he's just talking like, yeah, so we're gonna have to give you like meds to lessen the outbreaks. And I'm like, lessen the outbreaks? Like, wait, there's no cure for this? And he's like, no, like we'll be able to maybe give you some medication to lessen the amount of the outbreaks, but yeah, no, like it's like you got it. And so I'm like, and he like hands me some paperwork, and I remember walking out of that health center, and I remember moving to the side, and I felt like a scream. I was trying to hold it in so badly. I just dropped to my knees when I got out of people's like sight, when I got out of the doors, and I'm like, what have I done? Like, God, what have I done? Like, that was the first time I think that I really even asked that question, or had that overwhelming awareness that like what I was doing was against God. This wasn't just against myself and these people that I was involved with, but it was against God. And mind you, I call myself a Christian this whole time, even though I was like dipping and dabbing and sleeping, like I would pray like before, like, if he's not supposed to come over here, don't let him come. And then I would get a text, or then I would get, a knock on the, and I'd be like, I would pray right before I do it, like, Lord, please forgive me. Or I would pray, feel a little bit of conviction, like, while doing it, or pray after, like, Lord, please forgive me for doing that. But it was just like, there wasn't anything in me that was like, I'm going to stop this. Like, it was just like, I felt like, now I see the whole time, like, I was more so just I was the same way I was like milking it with like the attention from guys. I think I was milking God's grace too. Well, you love me, so you got to forgive me, right? And that was literally the perspective that I had. So now I'm hit with this diagnosis. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Mind you, it just so happens that my boyfriend is at my apartment this day when I get the results. And I am literally so overwhelmed in trying to figure out, like, how am I going to tell him this? What is he going to say? He's going to want nothing to do with me. My car was at my apartment, and I call him. I'm like terrified to call him. I'm like, should I walk home? Like, what do I do? Should I even go home? I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And so I call him, and I couldn't even contain it. I'm like boohoo crying. He's like, what's going on? Do I need to beat somebody up? Like, what's happening? And so I'm like, can you just pick me up? Like, please. And so he pulls up in the front of the school, and I get in the car, and I'm just hysterical, and I'm trembling, and I'm like, I don't even know. So we get into my apartment, and we sit on the couch, and he's like trying to ask me questions, and I'm like, I'm terrified to let the words even come out of my mouth. And we're sitting there, and he's just quiet. And then he was like, did you do something? And I'm like nodding, like, yeah. And then I remember him just sitting there, and he was like, did you sleep with somebody? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, are you pregnant? And I was like, oh God. Like, I literally didn't even think of that. But I'm like, no, like, I don't, So he's like, and then he calls out his name. And he says, was it him? And I say, yeah. And I could tell he gets like, it ends up coming out that they told me I had herpes. And as I'm sitting there, he's like, okay. And then he's like, I'm not going to leave you by yourself. And for me at that moment, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that God was real. I knew that after everything I had done, every lie I had told, every way I had just demeaned and devalued myself and devalued other people in the process, I fully felt like I was getting every bit of what I deserved. And here was the person that I had hurt most, sitting in front of me saying that they weren't going to leave me by myself. Now, granted, once I started having a bit more courage to confess everything, and he started putting two and two together and realizing that, this I think affects me. Wait a minute. Yes, he punched a hole in the wall. Yes, he was very angry, walked out and just was like fuming. But even through the aftermath of that, he didn't leave me by myself. The guy, he's like, well, you need to call him. You need to tell him. You need to cut that off. I'm like, okay. And so I call, like, hey, so I tell him, I went to go get checked out, and they diagnosed me with herpes. And so I asked, have you been with anybody else? And he was like, no, I just got tested, so, like, I know I'm good. And I think he said something along the lines of, like I get tested all the time. My heart just sank, because I just felt like, you're so stupid. I knew I wasn't gonna be his girlfriend. I knew I wasn't gonna be like his wife. I knew I was like the fling, but there was still a part of me that wanted to be the only one, like that wanted to be like exclusive. Yeah, I guess like that wanted to matter enough to be just the only person that he was like interested in or talking to or whatever, right? And he made me feel like that, but I felt silly in realizing that wasn't the case. And I just felt silly of like, this guy gets tested on the regular, which means he has a regular sex life. And I just felt so dumb. okay, here we are. So after that, all of these just thoughts start coming in my head. And now I have to live with this. I'm probably never going to be able to have kids. I'm probably never going to be able to get married. Because who's going to want somebody who has this? I'm going to have to relive this every single time I date somebody. Even though I'm like, he's sticking around saying he's not going to go anywhere. But there's no, I just didn't believe that to be true because of what I had done. And he ended up going to get tested and stuff like that. And the nurse is like, yeah, like, I've seen many of whatever, but sure, we'll call you if it's positive. We won't call you if it's not because we have a lot of people. And so I ended up Googling, things about herpes and seeing pictures of babies born with the breakouts and the sores all on their faces. And I felt like I had robbed myself in that moment of every possibility of my own future. Even though I had never really known for sure, like if I wanted to get married, if I wanted to be a mother, but it was like I felt like ignorantly, like my own actions like robbed me of that. It just felt like it was no longer an option for me anymore. It wasn't a luxury for anymore. It wasn't a hope for me anymore. And I felt like in that time, the little whisper that kept coming in my ear was, well, then why don't you just kill yourself? Like if I have nothing to live for, what's the point of being here? And I entertained it. Now I know it was God, but then it was just like there was something else in me that was like, no, like my life is worth living. I don't really know how. I don't really know what that looks like. But like I want to live. I do want to live. That whole time I was desperate for God in ways that I had never been before. Completely owned every bit of what I had done. And I just felt like, okay, God, if this is if I'm meant to live with this, then okay. Like I know you can heal and I know you can do all that stuff. I just want to live for you. And I give every bit of myself to you, regardless of what the outcome is. Even though there was a bit of a wrestle still where my boyfriend would be like, okay, so you got to cut him off completely, ditch his number, all this stuff. And there was still a part of me that was like it still had a grip on me, had me in a chokehold. And he would look at me crazy like, are you for real? I realized that no, like I fully needed to surrender that. But a little bit of time passes and the health center calls me back and is like, hey, we got to do a follow-up appointment. So I go and they're like, yeah, I know we gave you like the first half of your, STD screening results, but we got to give you the second half because the second half is for kind of like the heavy hitters, like, HIV, AIDS, just all these different things. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm not, like I thought that was it. The doctor's like, yeah, so like you don't have anything. So like you're good. And I'm like, what? Like I don't have anything. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, but I had like stuff going on down there. You don't, yeah, it's clear. Like you don't have anything. And I'm like, what? It has been 11 years, despite the symptoms and all the things that I had at that time. There hasn't been a bump, a lump, or an itch I can't scratch. Kevin, my boyfriend then, who is now my husband, I remember the voicemail that he got where the lady was like, yeah, I know I told you that we wouldn't call unless there was something, but I just had to call because like there wasn't something, but I thought it was something and I'm just a bit shook right now. So just wanted to like share that with you. And I'm like, God, you're real. You are a healer. There was no other explanation. The logical explanation was I did X plus Y, had a whole bunch of stuff going on. And then next thing I know, I'm healed. Like what? Yeah. I don't even know what to, yeah. After that, I would love to try to sell it, right? Like everything was like rainbows and unicorns, and it was still hard. Though I completely was like surrendered to God. And though there was a literally a real deal transformation in my heart where the things I would even try to go out to do, drinking again, or like going to the club, or just certain things that were part of my lifestyle before, I would try to do those things and I literally felt like a different person. It was like I didn't even enjoy it. Like I had a completely different perspective over everything that was happening in the environment I was in and what I was doing. And I just began to see myself in a different way of how like desperate I was for love and like looking for it in all of the wrong places and doing all of the wrong things just to try to earn attention and affection and like worthiness. And It was difficult to really let go of the things that I thought I needed, even after, as me and my boyfriend were like working through our relationship and like slowly like healing. It was hard to just have to really like deal with just the repercussions or the consequences of that pain that I had caused, and really me learning to forgive myself for everything that I had done. But when I tell you the freedom though that has marked my life, Jesus has changed my life in the best way possible, and he's made my life worth living. I just, at the end of the day, like everything comes down to our surrender. And so I just see at every point, even continually in my life now, that God is looking to have the whole of my heart, not just bits and pieces, not just, little parts, or get me out of the situation, even though sometimes he's just good like that and he's faithful where he does. I say all that because I fully believe that the same God that has given me purpose, the same God that has given me back my voice, the same God that has given me back my dignity and worthiness, the same God that has forgiven me, the same God that has given me courage and boldness to even sit here and tell you this whole thing. That's the same God that can heal you, that can bring freedom to you, that wants to invite you into his love. And so I just say this as a call for you to surrender as well, no matter where you're at, that God loves you and that God calls you worthy right now. And you don't have to clean yourself up or be perfect or have it all together in order for him to love you. He loves you now, and there is nothing you can do to make him love you more or make him stop loving you. And so I just challenge you right now to surrender to him and invite him into your life and allow him to do the heavy lifting. Allow him to do the transformation. He's the one that's going to do all of that. He loves you right now exactly as you are, but he also loves you enough to not let you stay in that pit, to not let you stay in the dark. I'm so grateful for that, and there's probably much more that I could say right now, but it's, I don't know what else I should say. And so, yeah, I just say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or if you need prayer for anything, you can hit the link in the description, and I would love to get to know your story and chat with you. You can get to know more about Living Worthy at the links and all that in the description. Follow us on Instagram, and yeah, God bless you, and peace out.